Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. I am Steve.
And I am Jeff.
And Jeff,
Mm.
things happened in these
Who knew?
chapters. I had no idea there was no story. Oh no, that's not true. I think there was a little bit of story time in the second chapter. I was kind of like in the second. Now I'm jumping way ahead, but I was kind of like in chapter 38. I was like, wow, they escaped really quick. What's the rest of this chapter gonna be? And then I was like, oh, it's story time. Of course, we have to have story time at the end. That's why this chapter is still going.
It's so worth it. But yeah, no, lots of action, things happening, rescues taking place, so on and so forth. But kicking things off, long chase, Nynaeve.
Nynaeve.
It's the way that I've done it forever versus what was in the book that I could have just looked at the entire time. But anyway, what were your
Wait, look at your book real quick. This whatever is not capitalized, right? In your book?
Oh, no, of course not.
Okay, good.
No, it's not one of these world wars that they're trying to get you in.
So let's talk about the beginning of this chapter because I had thought that
Nynaeve.
Wait, what?
Nynaeve isn't in here.
Isn't it in the glossary?
No.
No, that's how we learned the... Wait, what? That's how we learned the pronunciation. What are you talking about?
I swear.
You were
It's not in mine
out.
anyway.
You were
I know
out.
these like side journeys we take.
I know. Like, does anybody care about? They're like, we
I'm
all
sorry,
know how to pronounce it, Jeff.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I agree with Nynaeve. I go with Nynaeve, but I just thought it was funny that she wasn't there because yeah, it jumps from M's to 1 power. And Nynaeve.
What's her last name? Oh, right, because they're all by last name at the beginning, right? It's not Rand. Like, I was like, that's why I was like, oh, it's a genius that he made them all Owl something.
Oh, you're right.
Because you get them all at the beginning, and so there she
it
is.
was right. It's Nynaeve. Yeah, it's Elmera.
Yeah,
Nynaeve.
All right,
Nynaeve.
highlighting it for future reference. Okay, so going back.
You are right about the brilliance of all the A last names.
Yeah, right? You get all the main characters right away. And the horse. All right. Oh wait, is that not the horse's name? This is just.
No, it is. That is right.
Oh, but they don't. He doesn't mention that it's a horse. He just wants you to know it means west wind.
No spoilers.
Such a spoiler. Such a spoiler. All right. So, as I was saying, something that I thought was weird was I thought that Moiraine and Lan and Nynaeve had already gone, look, we're not finding Rand and Matt. It's not happening. Let's turn towards the boy who kept his coin, unlike those idiots. But then, this is, again, kind of doing that, double backing thing, or where I was like, wait, we already decided on this, guys. What are you doing? Just, go and save Perrin or whatever.
I feel like this is the, what's happened since the last episode kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
because there were too many chapters of that he needs to remind us what the heck was going on.
I mean, does that mean this is perfect for film? Perhaps. But yeah, I actually thought it was going into a double flashback with the hand, but then I realized the hand was bringing her back to this moment.
Right.
Yeah, because it says abruptly Nynaeve was jerked from memory back to the night, and I thought it was back to that night, and I thought we were going back to Whitebridge for a second, but then we didn't. But yeah, no, I totally think that they were just doing a quick or he was just doing a quick recap of this was a decision, it was hard, now they're here.
Right. All right. So they do this a little. So we get, I feel like in these chapters also a lot of, I'm going to say innuendo. I guess that's too strong a word. But the Nynaeve Lan ship has, again, fully sailed. The only other ship that I believe is going to happen but has not happened is the Min ship, which I'm convinced is definitely going to happen. But I am 1,000% convinced of the Nynaeve Lan, because Lan also has like another weird reaction later.
Where he
Um,
stops.
yeah, where Moraine's like, leave her. Which
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love.
yeah, yeah.
Love my girl. Moraine, yes, love her.
I love,
And then she's like, leave her. And she's like, Lan, you are bound by the oath of Grayskull to do this. And he's like, okay.
I always thought Grayskull was such a crazy, like, evil name. The fact it was, like, the good person's
And it's a
face.
giant skull.
Right?
That
Like,
also
that
seems like a little
always threw me off.
sinister. Yeah.
How is this not a layer? How is this? Anyway, but yeah, no, that line's amazing. But to back up, I did just want to say I thought there was some fun character work. Speaking of Moraine, of getting to see her sort of worried, sitting there, sort of meditating, and then finally like being relieved and going to sleep. Because we haven't really seen her like that before. And so it was actually, at least to me, that part was much scarier because she was worried. And so I do think that's an interesting trick you can do when you got a character that's behaving a particular way. And then when they finally react, it's like, oh no, now it's real, right?
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Okay. So one.
Now you know why they're basing the show on her.
She rules. She's always right as well.
I mean, she's pretty awesome. Yeah. I feel like, just a quick aside, I feel like Jordan really does escape making her just a Gandalf clone, which I truly appreciate. Because there's a lot of people who talk about like the first book being heavily, based on Lord of the Rings, like and stuff. Which sure, you can tell. But I do feel like Moraine is very much her own character, even in book one, which is just nice.
Yeah. Okay, so they come up with this plan that Nynaeve is going to go down and like kind of cut through these ropes of the horses so that when they jerk away, it breaks the ropes and horses go everywhere and they can't follow them or whatever. Now, I get a little... I guess I got a little confused here. So she comes out, she says, oh, here's Bella. Okay, awesome. She gripped Bella's rein tightly and wrapped the other around her other wrist, meaning another one of these rando horses.
Yeah, I had to go back on that part too.
Okay, and then Moraine calls down all the lightning on everybody. And then the horses take off, and I think it's described as they take off in different directions. Like Bella takes off in one direction, and the other horses take off in the other. And they talk about that lifting Nynaeve up. But I was like, girl's arm just came out of her socket is what I'm seeing happening right here. Like, I don't see this like, oh, you're lifting me between two horses. I'm like, they would use in Middle Ages horses running in opposite directions just to pull people apart into pieces. Like, there's like a word for it. I don't know what it is. But it was a type of torture that you just did to people.
Not remembering.
And like, so this, I couldn't really see it. Like, I don't think I completely understood what was going on. Like, I just see her being lifted because she's suspended from her two arms between two horses. Yeah,
I thought for a second that her feet were up too. Like, this part I definitely paused with.
Well, she hung suspended.
Right, so she's hanging suspended by her two arms, and then her feet are off the ground. So yeah, she's being stretched from her arms. But in the defense, it does say she thought her arms were being pulled out of their sockets.
Yeah, but I think they would be. I don't think she would just be thinking it. I think.
Well, no one's just a shaggy little mare, right? So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that happens, and then she grabs Bella, and so then we do again jump backwards in time slightly.
She does get the other horse too.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's interesting because it's a long chase, but it's a super short chapter. This continues the trend of short Nynaeve chapters, which, as we said before, she can be a character that's caustic to some people. So I feel like that's a choice. I love her in these, but how much of that is because I know more? I don't know. Like for this one, For others, I felt like it was because I know more. But for this one, I don't know. I just her little needling and like wanting to impress Lan and like saying she'll do it. Just her little moments like, so he thinks I'm good, does he? Like those for me work even more than the strong hands or whatever. Just seeing her trying to compete with a warder and then when she's on her own being like, I'm gonna die. like so I don't know. It was fun to me. I almost wished it was longer, but short, sweet, get some action, and we're off to the rescue.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't much more for her to do, so you can't really belabor this.
True,
Now,
true. No, I like that it was short and sweet. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that like I'd be happy to see more of this type of character, in other
mhm,
situations, kind of thing. Like she was just really enjoyable to me in that chapter.
right on. Fair enough. Okay, so this chapter I thought was a fine length. This this I felt like the, am I crazy for feeling like this was the easiest rescue that has ever happened or will ever happen?
Um,
Like this was no problem at all. And I feel like pretty disappointed because like the bad guy that we got last time with
yeah,
Perrin and Egg, I was like, this is the best bad guy. This guy is
yeah,
like so much better than the Dark One. I already
yeah.
care so much more about this guy. He's not here. He doesn't.
No,
He never
he's not.
appears. We only get his dumb lackey, who isn't very impressive and is dispatched with like hardly an effort by Lan, and like
Was
that's it. And
that
then they like waltz out of the joint.
mm-hmm. Yep.
I was like, no, this is where I wanted more. I wanted more in here. I wanted more like I wanted that bad guy to like do something cool or good or like at least like difficult, maybe be able to like see through what was going on or something, or like
Right.
they just beat up this dude and like waltz out. And and then, well, so yeah, just I'd like to hear your comment on that because I have one
Mm,
other like big
yeah.
disappointment at the end of this that I'm a little worried about. But I mean, what do you
Okay.
think? I just thought this was too easy.
Yeah, so I would say this is very non-standard for today's writing, right? Which is obviously we haven't been around these chapters in a while, so there's something to talk about that, right? Which I
Mm-hmm.
will get back to momentarily. But if this was just standard, dudes threatened with death, right? We cut away. What's going to happen, right? We come back, and then, yeah, that in terms of the actual rescue, it's not too hard for the people that are doing the rescue.
Right.
Now, I will say, I
In
think
fact, they
that,
were gonna let him go, and that's the other thing that like I don't really understand. And maybe it was a trick of some sort. But he's like, look, your wolves are slowing everybody down, and so we're just gonna let you go so we can get to Cable in time. And I was like, oh, that was kind of intriguing because I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. And then like I like that Perrin was like, oh, I don't know to trust this.
right.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of like an intriguing
Mhm.
dilemma. What is he gonna do? But then the agency is just yoinked away then. Like
Yep.
before he even really needs to make a decision.
Yep, exactly. So that's again piled on the sort of non-standard that I would say, um, because yeah, you are taking the agency away from the character. I think that there was a lot of structural things to sort of mitigate this to a degree, like the fact that we see Nynaeve doing the work, and it was hard for her. Like it worked out, right? But she like got yanked between two horses. Um, part of that, it was hard for us to visualize. So what did that do to that moment, right? Could have that
Mm-hmm.
have felt harder for her? And in this, we don't just immediately start with, Lan's there for the rescue because it is easy for Lan. We instead see the sort of the suffering that Perrin's gone through, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's in flashback, so it doesn't hit perhaps the same because it's relatively quick. But then, yeah, and then we get this moment where we get to see that he's been kicked all the time and everything, and this guy's treating him poorly, and then this apparent trick, right? And I do think it is fun having Perrin who's sort of sluggish, kind of working through what's happening? Is this too good to be true? Like, wait, actually, I think he wants us to try so then he can kill us, so on and so forth. So it is this big moment of tension, right? And then, yeah, Lan comes in and swoops it away. So part of me like really understands it because these are just kids. They can't be trained soldiers yet. So they need somebody else to succeed for them, at least in terms of that specific moment, in terms of the actual physical rescue. But could we have had something else to give them a little bit more of a win or, get a bit more of a payoff for a chapter that I think a lot of readers have been waiting for? Because as you said, like that was the most interesting thing you're waiting to get back to. And not only are we denied the bad guy that we love, but then we're denied him like much time with this, I would say, or a success from him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would have liked a lot more in here. And it got me thinking about, in comics, there's always this big debate going on constantly between about decompression versus compressed storytelling versus decompressed storytelling, with most of the ire a lot of times being hurled at decompressed, what people call decompressed storytelling, because like it's basically where you're taking multiple issues to tell a story that Stan and Jack would have told in basically like one page. And but like obviously the other end of that can be bad as well. If it's super compressed, you're leaving out maybe lots of interstitial stuff, which could be cool or interesting. But like this, like the instincts felt exactly swapped to me. Whereas like all that time I spent with Rand, I was like, this is taking so long and nothing is happening. And then here I'm like, stuff's happening. I'm engaged. It's a rescue. It's a set piece. And I felt like it was so compressed. Like it just happened. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I would have just loved, this is where I would have loved to dwell for a little while.
Yeah, it's like give me more chapters with Bornhald. Give me Perrin suffering and the wolves on the side, like I do wonder how much he felt constrained to still having Rand as the primary thrust. You know what I mean? And so wanting to lean on that. I mean, I will say that is one thing, at least in terms of what the book is training us. The book is training us as we're going to linger with Rand and kind of be quick elsewhere. So in that respect, this isn't super surprising, but I totally get from just a standard reader experience of what would traditionally be considered exciting or not. I do like that we get to see Bayer thinking about Bornhald and like that relationship. So we do get in sort of the shadow of the man, if you will, and like happens because of his nature in this scene. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have some additional scenes with that because Perrin's going through it, right? Like Perrin and Egwene they're having a terrible time. But we don't get to see that. So no, I think that compress and decompress is super fascinating and totally applicable to this.
Yeah.
What was the other part you would?
So the other thing that wounded me is so this was just more of the hints, whatever. This was just the part where it was the water did not move, and I thought it was funny. So yeah, that ship is happening. It's okay. We all know it. But okay, so did I not highlight it? I guess I didn't highlight it. So wolves just out of the picture. Like, bye guys, see you later. And I'm like, whoa, because like also early in the chapter, I think like we get that he gets to see through a wolf that Elias is alive,
right?
And so that kind of set me up that like, okay, Elias is gonna come for him, and you're also clued in on that because the wolves are hounding the progression of the White Cloaks. Completely. And they are kind of there, like you get to see them, like I guess like Nynaeve kind of sees them in darkness, or kind of sees them as like dark blobs, the wolves running all around.
And Lan talks about them like showing themselves to him and stuff like that.
Right. And then they're like, okay, we got you. Great. Nynaeve's here with the horses. We take off. And like basically the wolves just say goodbye. in his
Right.
head. And I'm like, wait, what? Really? Like they're gonna sit this one out. And so then I get this thought, which is scaring me, where like I'm
Are these
like,
tinkers all over again?
what?
I said, are these the Tuathalan all over again, the traveling people?
Well, exactly, but even worse because like I'm like, is Bornhold just set up for a future book? Like, am I not gonna see that guy anymore? Because I'm feeling like, no, I'm not gonna see that dude for the rest of
Mm,
this book. Are the Wolves and Elias just set up for a future book? Because now I'm feeling, and I might be wrong. We still got a ways to go. What percentage are we? I don't know.
we got a chunk. We got a
Yeah, we
we
got
got a we
like a
got a
third
noveller.
still, or 25%.
No, 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 no. We got like a little less than 200 pages.
Okay. Um, so like, right, so like 2/7, it'll be about like
Yeah.
25%.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like, yeah, like I'm not gonna see them anymore, and I might be wrong about that, but that got me feeling like, oh my goodness, this is like the nonsense teaser at the end of a Marvel movie that is clearly just there to set up the next movie. But like, I don't know, like these characters, I feel like a little robbed because like I do, I like Elias, I like Bornhold a lot, but then for them not to get to do anything really in
Right.
the book that I'm reading, the story that I'm reading, I don't like that. I'm like, I want, if you're gonna introduce them,
Yeah.
have them pay off at least somewhat in this book right here that I'm committed to reading.
Yeah. I think what's hard is that there may not be anything else that is as good to be looking forward to instead, right? Like if Rand was currently battling some awesome big bad,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, cool, yeah, we need another cool big bad with Bornhold. And then it's like, oh, sweet, yeah, no, I'm down to see him later because I got this other one that I'm, getting to hang out with.
Mm.
Um, but we're having Rand deal with a lot of grunts, you know what I mean? In terms of like little people like dark friends and stuff that'll pop up. Like
Right.
part of me likes it that it's, these like little people, especially the one guy that wasn't ready. I don't know. I love what Peter or something his name was. Love that dude. He was just like, crap,
Peter.
you're in my town. I have no idea what to do with you. I'm supposed to capture you, but I know I can't. They're like the most inept dark friend of all time. Like, love it. But in terms of a like competent bad guy, yeah, it's been mainly Bornhall because the Dark One just seems sort of crazy in their dreams and stuff, Balsamon, right?
Yeah.
So I feel you. I do. And I do think that is sort of a danger to give us a character that's so awesome, but it's just a little, right? Even if he did come back later, right? But you're if I was in your boat, I would think the same because the trajectory of the story is definitely looking to take us now toward Rand and Matt. Now, it is also totally possible the White Cloaks could chase them, right?
Yeah.
So there's the potential for that in Bornhold's solid. But we also did say that Bornhold needs to get to something. So, is that giving him a rationale to not chase them, which leads to the idea that that was maybe it. So, no, I feel you. I do.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm feeling like I'm not gonna see any wolves or any Bornhold for the rest, but for some reason I just like got that impression from this,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
yeah, I'm bummed.
the one day again, I think does make it seem far out,
Right,
where
yeah, that's the wolves saying that like made it seem
Mhm.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
book 3 or something.
yeah, one day. I will say, I mean, it's definitely making it safe for himself if he hasn't planned it right. Like if he's just like, I know I want him again at some point. What saves it for me, I think, is that it doesn't stop there. I know we were sort of joking about the story time that happens afterward, but there's a lot of interesting things that are revealed during this
Are
follow-up right after that.
there? Okay.
With Nynaeve looking to help him, but then she freaks out a bit as to how much she's able to help him.
Right.
So that kind of like hints at stuff there with her. It could be saying, Jeff, it's page like 563. Like, do I need hints at this stage? But I do think there's something interesting there. And then the whole thing about Lan, well, his eyes and
Mm-hmm.
them wondering about it and Moraine kind of hinting at it. And then we actually get sort of an answer. So instead of it being this, oh, you don't get to know right now, it's not fully answered right, but it's relatively directly discussed. So I think that
Mm.
that's nice as like he's still carrying a part of it with him. So it's not like over. So it's not like a someday and who knows with the Wolves, but there's something else that's riding with him as well.
That's kind of
So
interesting because I never like ever thought the yellow would go away from his eyes or he would lose the
okay,
wolfness when he went away from the wolves. For some reason,
gotcha.
I just felt like this was just the reveal of what you were, what you are, and what you've always been.
Okay.
Maybe there was some other lines that are giving me that impression because that also made me like just feel well. Like how is Perrin making this inference? Marine seems to think it's something the Dark One did. It isn't,
Yeah.
is it? Like, and I was like, she was like a little weird about it. Like, I do like she was like, there was no foretelling this, and I'm like, yeah, was there? Was there not? Did he not have any wolfy tendencies? Before, but so like, but she's like, okay, but now the wheel. I just
Yeah.
can't take all this wheel. Sometimes the wheel dictates stuff, but then Lan's like, well,
Just kind of roll with it,
sometimes you
bro.
can change it. I'm like, this wheel is wishy washy as AF. It like
As we learned from Low, the 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 age lace. No, actually, it's Lana talks about the age lace right now.
Sometimes
Yes, I
the
mean, you
pattern
think of
has
it,
randomness to it. This is like a
right?
get out of jail. This is like, what is the point of the pattern? Like, if it sometimes dictates stuff, sometimes has randomness to it, how would you tell when it was dictated or when it was random?
Well, I think what they are also trying. I mean, there's a couple different threads we're talking about, but at least for this specific one, I mean, we are just talking about different people's belief systems, right? So I
Uh
know it's tough because it's not like we've gotten a competing belief system, and we're not like we're following a priest or something that lays out the truisms of their belief,
huh.
but
Mm-hmm.
it does seem like people trying to make sense of chaos and people trying
Mm.
to roll with things or accept things and move forward. So
Yeah.
it feels like a belief system that allows you to keep going,
I guess that would make sense if I felt like, yeah, I was just reading about people's
People,
wacky beliefs.
yeah,
But I don't feel that way because, like, this is so entwined with,
with the
like, the
dragon.
idea or the
Yeah,
philosophy of the book, the iconography of the book, right? Like, there's the
true,
symbol all over the place. I feel like I'm supposed to buy this wheel entirely as, like, the
as the
real, actual,
mechanism.
factual,
Hmm.
part of the universe. Like, I don't. So when they're
Yeah,
talking about it, I don't feel like, oh, this is like wacky traveling people life philosophy. I feel
right.
like this is like the thing that I'm supposed
I
to be
appreciated
buying.
that comparison. I enjoyed that comparison. Thank you for that. Searching for the song. Um, so, I mean, I do agree with that. I mean, this one's definitely sold much more solidly because we have multiple people believing it. We have people
Mm-hmm.
talking about it like it's truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do think, yeah, I mean, it's showing that some things are set to repeat because it's a wheel that turns around like the
Mm-hmm.
dragon.
Right.
But then there's are things that can change. And what he's talking about, I think what he's getting at here, and we could, argue does it help or not, but he's sort of pointing out how lucky it was. This is something you actually talked about,
Yeah.
that
Right.
that Farron and Goyen are alone, and they just happen to meet up
Mm.
with a dude who can help him, and then he just happens to be connectable, and
This is
then it
why
just happens to be
I
that,
just don't even like the
yeah,
conceit of the wheel. And that's probably now everybody's going to come
right,
after me in the comments about how genius the wheel is, but I don't like it because now you get to do
right,
any wacky coincidence that you want in your
right.
narrative that in any other book people would roll their eyes at, but you get to go up, get out of jail free. It's the wheel, baby. except for when it's random.
Yeah, so I mean, I do hear that. I think back end is always tough, right? Like we've talked about this before. You
Mm.
know, if this had been set up, right, that like so this was something that Lowell talked about to Perrin, and I'm pretty sure it was discussed there. But the idea that like someone can sort of shift it because they're so important in like the weaving of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that can affect other people's lives next to them,
Yeah.
and sort of seeing those things can be cool like later when that happens because like he tells Rand he's Taverin, and then getting to see like if we saw that in action, if like weird stuff happened around Rand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that feels like set up and like he's special. You know what I mean? But this where we see a really random coincidental situation, right? And we're like, that seems highly coincidental. And then later we're like, it's cool. So like I mean, in some ways, I guess I'm glad that Robert Jordan, you know, talks about it, at least sort of framing it in something.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it would have been more effective if it had happened before than later, or just not addressed. Like, I feel like it could have been addressed that the reason Elias even went to them is because he sensed something in Perrin
Mm.
that was different, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, you know, like you could just turn it around. You can just make it a reason and someone else is doing it. So, pardon me, I'm getting so emotional about this. But I do think there is something to be said about that. But no, I did want to talk with you about that area because I hear what you mean, that it feels like some things are said, some things aren't. How does it work? I do think that he was sort of working through certain aspects because there's a lot thrown out here about the pattern in the wheel. And I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like it gets more refined as the story goes on. You get a better sense of how it works and certain elements associated with it.
Mm.
But overall, it does sort of seem to be describing a randomness that can happen, but sometimes coincidence and yada yada. Um, any last thoughts on that before I back up to something real fast?
Yeah. Go for it.
Uh, so the other thing was about the yellow eyes. I do think this is also the danger of the long. I'm pretty sure this is the first time that Perrin has, or that at least that other people are seeing his yellow eyes.
Oh.
And so it's supposed to be like a thing, like a moment, you know, that they're like, why the heck does he have yellow eyes? Like at the very least, it's the
Oh.
first time Nynaeve and Moraine have seen his yellow
Oh, for
eyes.
sure, because they haven't been with them. But for some
Right, right,
reason,
right.
I thought there was some sort of reference to it in the earlier
Yeah, I
chapters. I
think you're
might
right. You,
totally be wrong, though.
no, I mean, it's even been so long for me, especially the way we're reading it. So I don't remember. Did it happen earlier? I was just saying it's the first time they're seeing it. So that's why they're sort of freaking out.
Experts in the comments tell us, is this
Yeah,
the
let us know.
first time
I
he
mean,
has yellow eyes, or did he already have yellow eyes earlier?
I think he must have because he's not surprised by the yellow
Mm,
eyes right
mm,
now.
right.
Um, so yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he did. I'm sure that was another reason. But though, I mean, why would the White Cloaks be talking about how unnatural his yellow eyes are?
Oh, the white cloaks were talking about it? Then he
Yeah, well,
definitely already had it.
I'm saying if he did have yellow eyes, why weren't they?
Oh, why
Like,
didn't they mention it?
why wasn't Bayer talking about his yellow eyes and his
Yeah, that's
unnatural
pretty
stuff?
dark
You know?
friendy, man.
Exactly, exactly. So I think they would use that. So now I'm questioning. Oh, all
Well,
right,
don't worry.
experts, tell us.
Yeah, the experts will
I'll,
tell us. Don't even worry
I'll,
about it.
I'll, I'll also do some digging before our next recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like that was supposed to be like a bit of a moment, you know. But
Hmm.
obviously, whether or not it's the first one would affect the depth of that moment. Okay, well,
Yeah, and
more
it
to come on
also
that later.
doesn't really super surprise me as a reader because I know
Mhm.
he's a wolf boy. He's been
Right,
psychically
right.
talking to wolves for like chapters now. So, like, I don't.
Oh, true, true. I can't deny. Um, what do you think about Lan's closing speech?
Hmm. I mean,
You're like, it
story
happened?
time. Yeah, it happens. It definitely happens.
Oh, well, talking about Elias. I mean, is that story time? I
It
mean, I
is
guess.
story
A
time. It's
little bit.
story time about Elias. Here's the backstory of Elias, and you're like, okay, cool.
But I mean, if people know people, that's kind of natural. I mean, it doesn't linger that long. He mainly just says he was a warder and then the Reddish was chasing him. Um, but yeah. Anyway, uh, what I think is interesting here at the end is the push. that happens. And this, I think, is another reason you might have felt like it's totally over, because they're really pushing we got to find Rand now. Things are crazy.
Yeah.
Tension is high. And it's like, it is? Like, at least for me, I was like, wow, we're really selling this. Like, we got to get Rand. I mean, I didn't see Rand in that much trouble before. I mean, I guess sort of.
Yeah, he tries to
But
put like a little clock on this thing finally.
yeah,
To
exactly.
be like, if we don't get him soon, we're effed. So yeah, I think
Right.
you're right. I hadn't really like pinned it down to that, but it's like, okay, they're definitely going to Camelin. He's still going to be in Camelin. The false dragon dude's in Camelin. Everything's going to happen in Camelin,
Mhm.
and that'll be the end of this uh, episode of
Right.
Wheel
So
of
on the
Time.
upside, I think it was mentioned that Bornhold had business in
Yeah,
Camelin.
it did. It did. So
So,
yeah, maybe
so
he'll
yeah.
maybe
But I
he'll.
thought it was interesting, and it does really kind of close the door on this. Like, it would be sort of surprising to now get a chapter where the White Cloaks catch them. It feels like we're really pointing everything toward
Right,
Camelin.
right.
And then you turn the page and we're with Rand and Camelin. It's like, I feel like we're going to be in Camelin for a bit, and then other peeps are going to show up
Yeah,
probably.
I'm less certain that Bornhold's not going to show up again, but I feel like absolutely certain no wolves or Elias are going to show up
They're
again.
going to be in the city, bro. You know how Elias feels about
Yeah, he
city.
loves it. He loves it. I mean, I guess he does know that that's where they were going to, but like, I mean, I don't. For some reason, I don't see them popping up anymore, and that's why it feels like set up for future Marvel movies. Kind of a lot of this book.
Eye of the World, doing Marvel before we even know it.
Trailblazing.
I mean, truth. Any closing thoughts?
No, that's it, man. We're back with Rand. Let's hope Moraine and the gang show up soon, and we'll see. We'll see how many chapters of hanging out with Rand and Matt happen.
Yeah, and I
Just
do
one,
feel why
please
you
be
say
just one.
that. You're like, please just be one. I do feel why you'd say that because we don't have something else definite. Like, at least with Perrin, it was like, we're taking you to your execution.
Right,
Okay, like
right.
that's happening. With Rand, it's like, can you survive in the city against random people and get to Tarvalon, right?
Right.
Which there's just not a specific bad guy to that. Which and
Yeah,
there have
to go back to
been,
your
but
point of what you were saying of them like kind of building up. Oh, we have to get to them. There
mhm,
isn't anything concrete
exactly.
right now, like built into the story that I'm like, oh, this is the thing that's gonna get them. They're just like hanging out in the safe house right now, and like
Right.
whatever this is, I don't know it, so you're gonna have to invent it. But as far as like in my like desire to get back to Rand, it's not very high because you haven't set up the threat for me.
Well, we left him in a warm, fuzzy place, hanging
Yeah,
out in
right,
a
with
nice
his friend, with
library.
his giant friend.
Exactly, with his new buddy, right? So yeah, like exactly. I mean, we can assume that something will happen, but I think that's what makes the last chapter feel kind of like what,
Mm-hmm.
like the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, there's not something set up. So we are seeing definitely a couple instances of sort of back end setups. I feel like
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah, in the narrative
All right, everybody. We'll see. We will find out soon enough
in
what
weaving the web.
happens. And what do we still
More
gotta
about
get
that.
to, man? We gotta get to chapter 53. Maybe I am being premature in declaring no more white clothes here. We gotta get to
I mean, we do have some
53.
time.
Yeah,
We got some time.
we got some
Yep.
time always. Okay, thanks everybody, and we will see you next time.
See you then.